Hello and welcome to Media7. I'm Russell Brown. In our discussion last week about the Pike River disaster, there was one media phenomenon we didn't mention: Facebook. 90 minutes after news of the first explosion at the mine broke, 3 News established a Facebook page named Supporting the Pike River Miners. The affiliation is discreetly noted on the page, but 3 News chief editor James Murray told us the broadcaster wanted it to be something people could own themselves rather than a branding exercise. More than 100,000 Facebook users have since clicked the like button to register their support. Several similar Facebook pages created by individuals engaged thousands of New Zealanders, including one that was liked by more than 40,000, and another named RIP All the Brave Men in the New Zealand Pike River mine disaster has attracted a staggering 340,000 supporters. All the pages carry links for online donations, and 3 News has offered to turn over its page to the Grey District Council for future use. Clearly, Facebook, the planet's most trafficked website, became a place for people moved by this national tragedy. And that leads us to the theme of this week's show, the rise of social media and their connection to the media ecosystem. We'll begin on a cautionary note. Jose Barbosa reports that sometimes Facebook fails.
Because we're inner city hipsters, we here at Casa Barbosa have started holding regular bingo nights. 69, love pudding, 69. Now, for our last bingo night, instead of emailing people or ringing them, we sent out invites via Facebook. Now, most of our bingo nights have been particularly successful, but this time only 2 people turned up. So we just sat around contemplating the misery of life. So what was it about Facebook that made people less inclined to turn up to our bingo night? A similar question has been pondered by this bloke. This is Dylan Reeve. Now, you might remember Dylan from a story we did a few months back. Dylan wanted to make a music video. The difference being he wanted to source music, equipment, location, even the band, using stalkerware like Facebook and Twitter. So, Dylan, tell us what happened next.
Right, well, got some more bands submitting their stuff, made a shortlist, narrowed the shortlist down to a single list, the one band that we chose, and sort of went from there to start the planning phase, and then it kind of ground to a bit of a halt. The first appeal I made was for ideas. You know, have you got an idea you want to see in a music video? Have you got a cool shot idea? Is there a story? You know, listen to the track, tell me what you think. I got basically no feedback back on that. You know, without some more dedicated involvement and making it a real cause to fight for, it's been quite hard to get it to go the way I thought it might.
Social media is really hard. Anyone trying to start off a social media from scratch is probably going to go wrong the first 5 or 10 times, let alone the first time.
This is Morgan Nicol. He's the co-host of The Discourse, a weekly podcast where technology and other interesting tidbits are discussed.
Where he really went wrong was stopping using social media for production of the project. He organised it using Twitter and Facebook, but then abandoned it for the shooting and recording and so on. And I think if he had gone that extra step, probably could have got more traction more readily. If you look at Hibi No Nero's Sour, the band's fans all over the world looking into their webcams and acting out to the song. And it's brilliant. And it cost probably zero, nothing but time.
We'll still make the video. The band Solcian is a great band. It's the one we picked. They're a great band. They've got a great track. I'm still going to make the music video. Just have to figure out how and when.
But perhaps there's another reason why my bingo night bombed and why Dylan failed to get momentum with his project. Recently, curly-haired contrarian Malcolm Gladwell described the relationships you make on social media as weak. What he means is that you can ask more of your genuine real-life friends than you can of someone you just poked last week on Facebook. Let me demonstrate.
Hi, Jose.
Hey, I was just wondering if you could do me a favour.
Yeah, what's that?
I'm actually moving house and I need someone to help me lug all my stuff out.
Okay. Can see if it's you, man. I'll do it.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Love you. Bye. So that's an example of a strong connection. I've known Herb for 20 years, so it's not surprising that he'd be willing to give up an afternoon to help me move house. Now, let's see an example of a weak connection. And to do that, we're going to simulate Facebook social interactions on the street. Hello, my name is Jose.
Yoli.
Hello, it's nice to meet you. Can I be your friend?
Eh?
Can you guys help me move house? Nope.
No.
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 Ah.
I've got a not very good heart.
No, I'm not helping you to move house.
Oh, I'm busy, sorry.
Sorry, you sure?
Yeah.
But I thought we were friends, Hamish.
Sorry for
It's
that.
just awkward now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even though they said they were my friends, no one wanted to help me, apart from this guy who was really nice.
Kia kaha.
Twitter has let me down. Facebook has thrown me to the dogs. No, I'm done from the trade. I just feel slightly, what's the word? Naive.
I'm joined now by broadcaster Noelle McCarthy, who recently wrote about the tensions between Facebook friendship and the needs of real friends. Tech commentator Ben Gracewood, who you saw in the podcast there, and one of a burgeoning group of journalists who tweet, press political reporter John Harderveld. Welcome to you all. Noelle, you have nearly 1,000 Facebook friends. How does that happen?
I said yes to everybody. I wrote about this in the column. When I got on Facebook first, I set up my window, because that's what you do, and you look out to other people on Facebook. And everybody who wanted to be my friend, I accepted.
And these are people, in most cases, I'm guessing, that you don't know, but who think they know you.
Well, exactly. I ruled out the sort of more obviously egregious introductions, the ones who said, this isn't a date, I promise, or the ones who, you know, were abusive. But aside from that, I pretty much accepted everybody who asked me.
Any All Blacks on there? I recall when that wave rolled through.
I might have a few fake All Blacks. I don't know if they're real.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but there's no way of telling, is there?
But judging by your column, that Facebook popularity has become a problem for your real friends. How?
Well, it has. I used the column to talk about a conversation I had with two friends of mine, my two best friends, actually, who I was taking photos. We were on a day at the beach, and of course now the other thing with Facebook is if you take photos, you're taking them for Facebook. And they both said to me, A, don't put those photos up on Facebook, and B, while we're at it, you have too many friends. You have 947 friends on Facebook. We don't feel comfortable with that. We don't feel comfortable speaking to you on Facebook because of the audience. You know, my friends are quite, you know, they're protective, they're paranoid. But I think they were making a point that got me thinking, and hence the column.
You also mentioned the Facebook spies. Who are these people?
Well, they mentioned the Facebook spies, but yeah, you know, I think that is the problem with Facebook, is that it encourages all of us to be spies. I know I use Facebook to track people who I'm interested in and people who I may dislike, people who I want to keep tabs on for whatever reason. And I've seen a variety, and this is just anecdotal, I've seen quite a few news stories and, you know, sort of colour pieces where I am wondering where that information came from, and it seems to me that there is an awful lot of information available on our social networking profiles. As we become more active on them, that's what's happened to me, that's what I've been doing. I use my Facebook profile now. Before it was inert, it was like a CV or a shop window, as I've said. But now that I'm actually active on it, I think it's a very easy way to gather information about me, or, as in this case, about my friends.
Ben, you're the expert on this. Has Noelle merely got her privacy settings wrong?
Possibly, or the approach for the media wrong. So you've got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these sort of things. For me, Facebook is friends only that I know in person, and therefore I can share more things with them. Whereas Twitter, I think, as far as best I can tell, is swearing and rampant generalisations, which you can share with the entire world. And LinkedIn is more about professional connections. So maybe that's where the thing is. I wouldn't accept everyone on Facebook because I know the things I will be sharing.
This is a point that's been made recently by several people, is that Twitter was sold as a conversational medium, but it's more a broadcast medium, isn't it?
Effectively broadcast. You know, so when you get more than perhaps a double ratio of people following you to who you follow, it does become. I say stuff to 3,500 people. I'm not expecting a conversation and response. It's sort of, maybe a help, or this is things I'd like you to know, or this is what I find interesting, or what my cat had for breakfast.
But can I just make the point, Russell, and it's interesting in my case, I started off on Facebook as a private individual, not as a columnist or as a radio broadcaster, simply as Noelle McCarthy, the person. And what I've found is now I need to reckon with engaging with Facebook as a columnist and as a broadcaster.
Because people are looking for Noelle McCarthy,
yeah, they
the
are.
broadcaster. Yeah,
and somebody suggested to me after I wrote the column that I have a separate page a fan page or a like page, and I mean, I
There's
find that
something very, very wrong with creating a fan page for yourself.
Could you imagine?
I can't.
There's Colin in that.
John, I'm presuming you don't have a fan page, but you are one of quite a large group of mainstream news journalists who got on Twitter this year. What happened there? Did everyone suddenly decide it was the place to be?
I think it's sort of a bit of Me Too going on there, wasn't there? I personally actually resisted for quite a while. The idea, I promised someone that I would in sort of December last year and put it off and jumped into the group of people who said it was all inane banter. And then was talked into joining by my partner, who pushed me into it, and it's been great for me. You know,
what's the benefit for you?
Well, I actually do buy into the conversation aspect of it. As a journalist, for me, it's the one way that I've been able to actually speak to readers directly. I wouldn't respond to every single request because it would. I'm finding it is actually taking up quite a lot of my time now, which wouldn't please the editors too much. But I think it actually is quite effective to communicate directly with readers.
Well, what do the editors think of it? Do you have editorial guidelines for the use of social media?
We do. In Fairfax, we've developed a social media guidelines, which are being developed. They're a work in progress, and even as we speak, we're moving around the country. The leadership are moving around the country, encouraging our reporters to get on Twitter, and they are. I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, as it's moved up the country, I've got more familiar names, and there'll be familiar bylines to people following me on Twitter and gathering followers.
Which is interesting because I follow you on Twitter and I quite enjoy getting your story before it appears on the website. You effectively scoop yourself.
It's a touchy point, actually. It is. But the way I see it is it's a very snappy way, and essentially I'm a news hound, and it's a bit of a show-off thing, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But we do, fundamentally...
Do you compete? Do you and other journalists compete to get that tweet out first?
I think only at a casual level, you know. I think we do seriously. I think it probably will develop into that.
It can lead to embarrassing situations, though. You know, that need for speed and to be in the conversation. I won't name the journalist last week who was tweeting that Colonel Mbani Marama was dead. Now, this was a rumour that did the rounds down in Wellington, and
Jeff Goldblum sort of scale.
Exactly, yeah. And of course, everybody wants to be first, and Twitter provides you with a platform for a quick breaking story.
It also feels a little wrong to me, like. I follow journalists, and my point is that Twitter especially is all about people. It's just people. So people tweeting about their jobs, perfect. When I'm following a bunch of software developers and they say, oh my gosh, there's been another explosion at Pike River, that feels important and unique. When a reporter says, oh my God, there's been a second explosion at Pike River, here's a link to my story and my paper and please drive some traffic there, it feels a little bit less genuine. Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum.
As a branding exercise, as a branding tool, yeah.
That's interesting because you've actually incorporated it quite well on afternoons on Radio New Zealand. It's actually become a part of the show now, hasn't it?
I think radio lends itself to that. I don't have a personal Twitter account, but I have an account for Summer Noel, because I think, you can look at a radio run sheet and being able to tweet that gives you that sense of pace. And the great thing, as interviews or features change from one to the other, you can keep people with you the whole time on Twitter. Plus, there's something lovely about being able to say, Phil Goff just arrived in the studio. He's fixing his papers now, but you can take people behind the scenes.
It's that real-time thing is part of the fun of Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it does give a bit of colour too. I think people quite like to hear. I mean, it might sound inane, but that kind of thing. Phil's arrived, he's setting up. I actually find that, it is a bit of a colour thing. And you talk about scooping yourself, but I mean, it's only 160 characters, I think. 140 characters. And I tend not to generally link to my stories, right? So Lockwood Smith announced the flip-flop on MP's international travel perk a couple of weeks back, and I was standing there recording with one hand and actually tweeting with the other hand, and I rushed back to the office and typed up the story. And through that, I probably did 5 or 6 tweets through that evening around, in anticipation of him coming, and then when he finally came and broke, and I was linking saying the story will be up on Stuff shortly, and so hopefully my modest number of followers will go, we've got the pithy bit. If we want to learn more about the story, get the full story, we'll go, and it will drive traffic, hopefully.
Well, which tends to be what I do, actually. Anyway, we'll pause now and be back after the break with more on social media and a peek at the WikiLeaks.